Okay, welcome, and now we're going to start talking about inverse trigonometric functions. So let's do a little bit of review as we recall, or you might recall from just days of dealing with algebra and functions. That when we talk about inverse functions, in order to have an inverse function, the function must be one-to-one, right? So remember that. Now, obviously, the sine function is not a one-to-one function because it doesn't pass the horizontal line test, right? But if we restrict the domain, for example, if we restrict the domain from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, right? If we do that, then we will have a one-to-one function, and it will also satisfy the other conditions to have an inverse, right? So it's an increasing function, so from negative 2 pi over 2 to positive pi over 2, it's an increasing function. It is one-to-one, and it does take on the full range of the sine function. So if you go from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, it does go from negative 1 to positive 1. So it spans the whole range. It is increasing, and it's one-to-one. So by those three conditions, we do have an inverse. An inverse will restrict. So then we'll call that, on this restricted domain, the inverse sine function, because since we're dealing with sine here, so this is sine x. So we'll call it the inverse sine function. Okay, and it's also denoted by arc sine. So y equals arc sine of x. Okay, or another way of writing it is this way. Okay, with this inverse symbol. Okay. And by the way, this symbol, this notation here, is consistent with our function notation, because we write this, remember, f inverse of x. Okay, so now this also corresponds to the central angle for the unit circle, right? So when we talk about y equals the arc sine of x, think of the arc, right? The angle whose sine is x, right? So that's what we mean. So we're asking, hey, what angle, okay, the sine, or how do I say it? The sine of what angle equals x, right? So in other words, we're looking for an angle. Arc sine of x will give us an angle, or an arc. And it comes from the association of a central angle with its intercepted arc length on the unit circle. So arc sine x means the angle whose sine is x, like I was saying. both of these notations are commonly used in mathematics. So either arcsine or sine inverse, both are used. And again, look at your calculator. Your calculator may have arcsine or either one of these symbols. Some calculators say arcsine, some calculators use this. So again, it's interchangeable, used quite often. Okay. Now, also remember, again, it's a notation here. So this here represents the inverse sine function. It is not equal to this. Okay? It is not the same thing. It's a notation for an inverse function. Okay, and so remember the values of arcsine, okay, then, so arcsine is going to be in between, as you might suspect, negative pi over 2 and pi over 2, right? Because we're looking at their angles. Okay? Now, it may not be a surprise either that if you look at this function, it's a, remember, inverse functions are reciprocal, not reciprocals, are reflections about the what? The y equals x function, right? So it may not surprise you that this is going to look something like this. Okay, because all you're doing is reflecting it about the y equals x line. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to introduce a definition, right? The formal definition, and then we'll go from there and do some examples.